Eddie. Hi. Anthony Gordon called up by England for the first time yesterday for the upcoming friendlies. How pleased are you for him?
Delighted for him, yeah. I know it's been a big aim, an ambition of his since he was a little boy, and he fully deserves it in my opinion. I think he's been outstanding this year. I think he's continued to grow week on week. I'm delighted that's been recognised, and he's worked so hard. You know, from the first day of pre-season after coming back from the Euros with his country and doing so well there, he didn't stop, and he scored goals, he's created goals, he's done brilliantly for the team. Delighted.
And his inclusion in the England squad obviously indicated that the knee problem that he sustained at Chelsea wasn't serious, and I think he said that himself in an interview yesterday. So what exactly did he do to his knee the other night?
Yeah, it was a strange one, because I think initially when you see a player come off like that, you do fear that there's a serious injury. But no, he sort of partly trained yesterday. What I mean by that is we didn't do a great deal with the schedule that we've had this week, but he joined in and seemed okay. So I don't think he did anything serious, and that's great news for us.
You probably guess what the next question is going to be. Will he be fit for you for Manchester City tomorrow?
Well, we train again today, so we'll do a full session and we'll make a judgment after that.
And what about Harvey Barnes, who you mentioned had some hamstring tightness, and that's why he wasn't with you on Monday? Is there any chance that he could be in the squad tomorrow?
No, Harvey won't make the squad, but we hope he'll be back for West Ham.
After Manchester City, you've then got that break before the West Ham game, and although you've got a lot of players away on international duty, will you go away with the rest of the squad, or will you be based here?
Yeah, we're going to go away, as we have done the last 2 years. We're going to go to Dubai with the remaining players, do some warm weather training, and work on some things, and I think that'll be a good time for us.
As you'll understand, there was a lot of disappointment among the fan base following the defeat by Chelsea, and quite a bit of anger too, and there are a few individual players who seem to be coming in for some criticism at the moment. One of them is Sean Longstaff, someone who's been really important for you. You tended to pick him when he's been available. How do you feel Longstaff is performing at the moment, because he does seem to be one of the players that's the target of a lot of supporter criticism?
Yeah, Sean, I think he needs to train regularly to get his best rhythm, and I think his training the last few weeks has been disrupted by an ongoing foot problem that he actually first received against Everton at the end of last season. Remembering that game, how long ago it was. I think last week he had an injection. He did train, but late in the week, and I think that's always difficult for any player when their training week's disrupted. So Sean, I think, has had some really, really good games for us this season, and he's a really important player because of his game intelligence, and his understanding of what we want from him is of the highest level. I back him, I back his ability, I know how good he is. He's integral to us when he's at his very best, but I do think he needs to train regularly to get his best rhythm.
Looking ahead to the match tomorrow, Manchester City away, I suppose, is the draw that nobody wanted, but how big of an opportunity is it for you to deliver something special?
Yeah, as I said after the draw, it's not the draw we wanted, let's be honest, but I think once we had a chance to get a head around it and understand and reflect on it, we'll have a right go, and we'll attack it, and we'll try and progress to the next round. We can do it. I've got no doubt about that. Of course, we've got to get our game plan right first. We've got to execute it to the highest level, and we probably need a little bit of luck along the way as well. But I think we'll go there, positive mood, and give it our very best.
Did you watch their game against Liverpool last weekend, and if so, what did you think of how they played?
Yeah, I've watched all their recent games in depth, which is always a very interesting thing, because I think you understand how good they are when you watch them forensically. They're just an incredible football team, and they've been so consistent. The way they play is unique to them. For me, they've got the best manager that's arguably ever been, and they've got the elite players. But just look at our games against them this year, how tight they've been. So we're a couple of minutes away from getting a really credible draw at home, and that game could have been different. We could have won it. We of course won the cup game, and the game at the Etihad early season was tight, although we weren't at our best. So I don't think the games we've been too far away, and we're certainly going to need, as I say, in those games we probably haven't had the ones we lost. We probably didn't get the luck that we maybe needed, and that's what we're looking for.
And finally, how big a factor for you and for the club is Wembley, with the semi-finals being held there, because it meant so much to you all and to the fans getting there last season?
Yeah, I think right from minute one in the FA Cup, that was our aim, was to try and progress in the competition. We wanted to get back to Wembley this year, and we've done everything we can in some difficult games. We've navigated them well. Certainly the cup draws, as we know, this season haven't been kind to us, but we've managed to find a way to get through to the quarter-final. We're delighted to be here, and now we're here. We don't want to waste this opportunity, so we'll give it absolutely everything to get back to Wembley.
Keith? Eddie, the team's conceded a lot of goals recently, particularly on the road. What sort of improvement is required from the team ahead of what you rightly say is probably as tough a task as you can get?
Yeah, of course the defensive stats don't go away. They're reality. That's what's happened. Certainly we know that we're going to need to be much better than we were against Chelsea. And I say that off the back of conceding 3 goals that, if you'd watched the game, are out of context with the game and out of context, I think, generally with our performance, but we conceded them. We conceded them from 3 moments where they didn't look like immediate danger. So we've analysed that and reflected on it with the players. We've gone through it. Now we're going to the best team in the country, in my opinion, and we're going to need a big improvement in our defensive resilience to get through to the next round.
I think what makes it so strange is that you were so good defensively last season, and it's gone the opposite way. Obviously, difficult question to answer, and it can be a number of things. What do you put that down to mainly? Yeah,
I've been asked that a lot, and it's never one thing, Keith. It's always loads of little things. But again, going back to the goals we conceded against Chelsea, they were structurally we were fine. There was no issues with our shape. We had bodies behind the ball, but individually we didn't do our jobs. And I think no matter what shape or your tactical framework you put together, individual players within that has to do their job in order for it to be effective. So that's what we're looking for. But I always say we attack together, we defend together. I know it's cliches, but it's so important and it's so true. We've been a really good attacking force this year. We scored 2 very good goals against Chelsea. You look at the quality of our goals and how hard we had to work for them. A frustration for us is that we gave away 3 poor ones, and we can't keep doing that.
You've had a lot of disappointment this season when it comes to injuries. Was it a real feeling of relief this week when you found out that Anthony's Gordon wasn't as bad as what you maybe first thought? Yes, definitely. There was a feeling of relief regarding him. It's been a rare feeling for us that we've had one go that way for us. Most of the time this season it's gone the other way, where things don't look serious and it's turned out to be more complicated than we first thought. So I'm delighted for him and delighted for us because he has been integral to our success. Yeah, and I think he said yesterday, he said, I've been working my whole life for a moment like this. If you cast your mind back to when you signed him, was that perhaps one of the selling points? Did you say, look, we can get you into this England squad, we can do this together? No, I don't think that was in my pitch to Anthony. I believed he could, but for me it was all about him coming here to represent Newcastle, and whenever we sign a young player of that age and that potential, it's always about, I think, how we can add to his game really and what we can do to improve his performances. I think Anthony was a brilliant in a brilliant place to come to us and really push on and develop parts of his game. And I think you can see week in, week out, he has improved in different areas. Hence why he's got the call up. But I think it's just the start for him, hopefully. I think we don't want this to, and I know he's the same, he's very ambitious. We want him to push on from this moment as well. And I guess it's bittersweet to an extent with your other 3 who obviously have been capped before, and Kieran, Nick Pope and Callum Wilson all missing out through injury at the moment, and it would have been an opportunity for them to showcase what they could do ahead of the Euros. Yeah, they're in a different position, of course. Kieran's less serious injury, so I think he's in a different place to the other 2. Of course, Nick and Callum, huge players for us and historically for England, so we just wish that them a speedy recovery and hope they get back as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Eddie, good morning. The fact that Anthony Gordon is in the England team sends out a message, doesn't it, in the transfer market to prospective players that come here and Newcastle United will add something to your game that will take you to that next level.
Yeah, I mean, from our side, I think we back ourselves to develop players and help players improve. But ultimately, it has to come down to the player first and foremost. And that's where Anthony has to take a lot of credit, because he's the one who's driven his improvement. We've just facilitated that and helped him. But he's driven every day to improve, whether that's his crossing, his finishing, whatever part of the game he wants to work on, we're there to help him. But he drives that process. But of course, if there's other players looking at the speed of his improvement, that can only be a good thing for us.
You talked about injury problems here, but Man City have one of their own. As been reported, Kevin De Bruyne will be missing tomorrow. Given what he achieved in the league game in January, that's quite a good thing, isn't it?
So that game, that was hugely frustrating for us, because 2-1 up in the game, and he comes onto the pitch and sort of instantly changes the game. I mean, his goal was incredible because it looked so easy for him, his finish. Of course it wasn't, but that's the quality of him as an individual. The issue with us is, of course, that he potentially won't play, but someone else of a very good level will. So we expect the very best Manchester City, but we need the very best Newcastle.
Tomorrow, you've talked about tactics and getting the game plan right. Is it a question of getting the balance right, i.e. you either sit back and you might get beaten, or you attack and you expose yourself to Manchester City's incredible counter-attacking game? So how do you achieve that balance?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you go away from home against, but to be honest, it doesn't matter whether you're away or at home. You've got to set your stall out as to what you want to be. I think the 3 games against Manchester City, we've tried to get the balance between being aggressive, bringing front foot, trying to make it difficult for them, but also defending well and making it difficult for them to score. And I think invariably we've, done okay against them, but there's always that the quality that they have, the ability they have to either play centrally through your lines, or individual moment from one of their players that can break that and can cost you. And I think just looking back at the games that we have lost, it's moments of concentration, it's just switching off for a split second and you get punished, and that's what we can't do in this game.
It's been reported that Dan Ashworth, Newcastle now looking up to speed up his departure to Manchester United. Is that the case? And what's the current situation about finding a replacement?
I've no idea on either, to be honest. I'm not part of that discussion daily.
Thanks.
Simon at the back.
And it's easy for fans to be fatalistic when you get a cup draw like this, but the experiences that you and the team have been through over the last 2.5 years, how confident are you that your squad goes there knowing that there's no such thing as a game that you can't win?
Yeah, of course. I think we've been in the game long enough to know that anything can happen. This is a cup competition that we are very serious about. We have been from the start. We're certainly not fatalistic. We're absolutely focused on trying to get through to the next round, and the carrot is there for both teams to get to Wembley, semi-final of the FA Cup. There can be no greater motivation for us than that. So we're determined to do well. We have to, as I said earlier, we have to get the game plan right. We have to produce a much better performance than we did against Chelsea in every aspect, but I back us to do so.
In a previous era, there was a different relationship between the club and the cup competitions. Do you think that the way that you've approached the cup competitions has helped the bond of trust between your squad and the fans?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I think for us, we focus very much game by game, and we take every game seriously. I'll never pick a team that I don't think can win the match. So whatever competition we're in, I'll always take that view. Now, sometimes you change the team, but you still believe that team's good enough to win. And that will be the case again tomorrow when we'll look at the team. We'll pick the players that we think can give a good performance and that can get us through to the next round. I think hopefully the supporters have seen the commitment of the players in every game. And even against Chelsea, look, we weren't where we wanted to be, but we're going to the end. We scored late in the game to make it uncomfortable for Chelsea, and one of the big things for me is we never stop until the game's done. We keep going to try and find a way to win.
Lee Ryder.
Eddie, is there any news on the timeline for Nick Pope coming back?
I think in the last press conference, I said April is sort of his target. Now, I think that'll be more toward the end of April than the beginning. But he's making good, solid progress. He is out on the grass, but not necessarily diving. But he's doing lots of other little bits. Of course, diving is a big test for his shoulder, and that's probably the next stage of where he'll start implementing that back into his game. And then, of course, he's got to get his sharpness back. So I think he's entering sort of the final furlong in terms of his comeback. He's pleased with where he's at, but he's still got a lot of hurdles to go through.
And 8,000 fans go down to Manchester. How big a part can they play in this tie for you in terms of giving you more energy than you've already got?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say the away fans have always done that. This season they've been incredible. I think when you go back to the Sunderland game, in the Fulham game, the Sunderland game I think took care of itself in terms of the atmosphere, but the Fulham game, where it would have been very easy to the Newcastle supporters to not turn up in their best voice, but they did, and they really inspired us that day, and they really helped us get through a tough game. We're going to need them again, but I no doubt they'll be there for us. They have been all season.
And have you done anything special with players this week? I mean, last year you mentioned how long the club have gone without the trophy. Have you gone down that road again, or have you done something completely different this time?
No, it's always something different. You can't regurgitate the same stuff, especially if it doesn't work. So, no, we're going a different way, but I think the players are ready and they're motivated. They know how much this game means.
Cheers. Jordan, Craig and Scott. Just obviously the big game you mentioned there, chance to get Wembley. How much of the season rests on tomorrow night, do you feel, given what's at stake?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's... the season is in this one game. I don't think that's necessarily healthy to look at it. In some respects, that can help you, but it can also have a negative effect. When you look at our league position, we're still very much in the hunt for, of course, finishing as high as we can, and then we're looking at trying to squeeze into Europe, and that will be our aim to the end of the season, regardless of what happens tomorrow. But tomorrow's it's a separate game. It's a different way of looking at the tie. This is a one-off. We want to give everything we can to get through, because the experience of Wembley and FA Cup semi-final, and if we can push through into that round, then we're very close to where we want to be, which is the finals of major cup competitions.
And just one on Harvey, how frustrating has it been for him? Obviously he had easily off the foot injury, now he's out of the hamstring injury. How is he? Is he frustrated, and how do you view the situation in his season so far? Yeah,
hugely frustrated. He was very, very down after the Wolves game, because he knew he'd just felt something in his hamstring, and usually that's going to take a period of time to get right. He's desperate to do well for Newcastle. You saw his quality when he came in against Luton and scored instantly. He is a goal scorer. We've missed him when he's not been available this year. I know the qualities that he has. I'm desperate for him to show that to everybody on a consistent basis. Whether this hamstring injury is related to his foot problem, there is a possibility that's the case. But we hope he can be back. He's on the grass already, so we hope he can get back soon and have a positive impact towards the end of the season.
Thanks, John. Craig?
Morton, Eddie. Anthony's made the squad, which is great. I suppose this is only step one. Euro 2024 has got to be the ultimate goal, I suppose, for him.
I'm sure for him it is, yeah. I mean, he won't want to just experience this and then not the second part, so I'm sure he's hugely motivated to impress Gareth. My words to him will be, put England to the side. We have another game coming up, a huge game for us, so England has to wait until after this game.
Here's another England question. His versatility as well, a lot of debate over 2 strikers, 3 strikers, what Gareth goes with. Is that in Anthony's favour, that ability to play across the front line? Yeah,
it certainly can't harm him. I think when we signed him, we were looking at someone that could play both sides. And when you actually analyse how many wingers in the Premier League can effectively play both sides, there's not many. Usually one, and then Anthony would prefer the left, but he can play on the right, and he can play on the right very well. He did that for Everton a lot. So that versatility is important, and it's important for us when we have players that can play dual roles. But I'm sure it'll be important for Gareth as well.
Thank you.
Scott, you mentioned Sean there's had this kind of issue effectively all season. We know that Sven's obviously, his knee issue is kind of there in the background. I mean, are there players at the minute, those two being probably the prime examples, where you're really trying to nurse them through the end of the season to maybe have a longer term fix in the summer, whether that be an operation or a much longer period of rest?
Yeah, it's been a difficult season with navigating the situation we've been in. Of course, we went through a period where we were through having a lot of injuries to our attacking players, picking 11 players. Now, of those 11 players that were playing, not everyone was 100% fit. Now we're in a situation where we have a slightly bigger squad, and on paper we have, some of our best players back fit, and we have strength and depth. But of those players, you look at someone like Elliot Anderson, he's back, but he's not 100% fit to play. He's nursing his way back after a long time out. We'll have other players in the team at the moment who aren't 100% fit, but in my opinion, they're sort of in a situation where they need games to get back to their best level. If I don't play them, they're never going to get back to their best. So I'm sort of stuck in a difficult position where you can leave them out, but then do you have the strength to bring in and replace them with?
And if we talk about some of those players who, maybe their form isn't quite where it might have been in the past, but they played a lot of football this season, are there times when you've had to call on players to play when they've been fit to play, but in an ideal circumstance you wouldn't have gone there, but you've had to make that call and almost lent on them to play to get you through periods when the squad's been so light? Yeah,
of course. I mean, probably this season more than any other in my career, where I've had to go, look, we need you to play. I know it's not ideal. I don't want to get the violins out and feel sorry for ourselves, but that's just the reality of the position that we've been in due to the lack of squad depth this year. I think that's why I always compliment the players, because not everyone sees behind the scenes what they're giving, and sometimes when a player goes out and plays and he's not feeling great and then doesn't perform to the level that he wants to, gets criticism for it, and you're thinking he's actually playing for the club here, he's not playing for himself. And that's difficult to take if you're the player, I think. Yeah. And that's where it's my job to try and protect them, because these lads are giving everything, and they have given everything this year. For me, they deserve some protection and support, knowing how good they are. Like some of these players that you've mentioned are top players, outstanding last year on a consistent basis when they were fully fit. I think we just need to support them through this period and try and nurse them back to their very best, because they can make the difference for us.
Chris and then Mark. Mona, you sort of mentioned the game plan. Is it more difficult or at least different in a cup game than in a league match? I mean, a few years ago Newcastle played Man City in a quarter-final, and I think the accusation afterwards was basically they were trying to play for a draw, and obviously that isn't necessarily what you want in that position. Is it difficult to get that balance right in a cup game because it's not the same as in a league match?
Yeah, I do get the question. I understand it fully. I don't think I've said this before. We never play for a draw. That's never in our psychology. It's always we're playing to win, and we're trying to find a way to produce a game plan that gives us enough solidity in defence, but also enough threat to attack. Now, I think I've said this many times before. When you go into these types of games, if you don't give Manchester City a problem the other way, their day's much easier. So we have to find a way to, which we did, I think, in the home game recently against them. We gave them a problem. We worried them, and you look at our goals, high quality goals. And that gave us, yes, we didn't have a lot of the ball, but that gave us a foothold in the game and enabled us to stay competitive. So if you don't get that right, then it can be very difficult.
And in terms of going there tomorrow, I mean, I think the wide assumption from a lot of people is that you go there as massive underdogs. Obviously, for the first 18 months of your sort of time here, you went into quite a lot of games like that, and maybe sort of expectation flipped. Do you think it's flipped back, and can you use that to your advantage to be the underdog?
I don't necessarily think it's flipped back against Manchester City. I think whenever we've played them, we've always been the underdog, but I think that goes for 99% of the teams in England against them. Maybe bar Liverpool, really. But can that help us? We use anything that we have, any tool that we have to try and help us win this match.
Okay, Mark, Kieran, Simon?
Eddie, possibly some of the frustration I think was that on Monday was that you'd had a really good result against Wolves, and there has been a sort of a bit of a trend this season where you've had a really good result and then maybe just fallen back a little bit, had a really good result, fallen back a little bit. Has that been a frustration this season that you've not maybe been able to build on sometimes when you've built yourself a platform?
Yeah, definitely. From my perspective, hugely frustrating, because I think I said last year you sort of knew when you're going to watch Newcastle what you're going to get. It was already before the game. It was already in your mind what you were going to see. You're going to see a team that was hugely competitive aggressive, solid, consistent in lots of our game themes. I think this year it's been slightly different. We have been inconsistent. We've gone from game to game, and almost, I'm not saying you don't know what you're going to get. I think you'll see our players give 100% to try and win the game, but we've just not been the same. We haven't been able to maintain our rhythm in the games. And even against Chelsea, we were inconsistent within that game. There were some really good bits and there were some not so good bits. So that's what we're searching for. We're searching for that identity that you can rely on.
You mentioned there about individual mistakes and things. It's not really in your nature to kind of, like you just mentioned there about supporting the players, it's not in your nature to kind of like get too angry with players and things, but if you had to kind of almost reinforce the message that it's concentration, it's about those kind of things, or have you sort of understood where maybe some of those comments?
Yeah, I think it's my job to support the players in the media, 100%. That's always been at the very forefront of my mind when I'm speaking to anyone external. I love my players, I want to help them in every way, in their life and in their careers. But of course, behind the scenes, I will let them know in no certain terms if I'm not happy, and they've got to do more. So have no fear about how I interact with the players behind the scenes.
Okay, Kieran?
Jamie Carragher this week suggested Newcastle look like a team almost ready for the end of the season. How much do you kind of rail against that?
Yeah, I don't like to hear that. I didn't know he'd said that, but you know, he's entitled to his opinion. But that's not how we are internally. That's not how we're working. That's not our training standards and intensity is still there. And we're determined to end the season well, regardless of what happens tomorrow. So no part of us is thinking ahead, too far ahead anyway.
With that, you talked a lot about protecting your players. Obviously, with the financial rules, this summer isn't going to be a mass overhaul, is it? These are players you want to take into next season.
Without trying to predict the summer, which is very difficult to do, no, I don't see a way that we can have a mass overhaul. I think it's almost impossible because of financial fair play rules. Any player that we lose from our squad, we have to replace. So that costs a lot of money to find elite Premier League players. So in terms of trading, of course, I'm sure there will be trading, but I'm not sure how much.
Okay. Simon?
Eddie, football's an emotional game, and social media might not be like most representative of what fans think. But were you aware of the anger of some fans on social media after the Chelsea game, and how do you react to that?
No, I wasn't aware. Am I surprised? No, I'm not, because I think we're in a results-driven business. I wasn't happy. I was angry after the game. The players were angry after the game. So there was a lot of internal reflection. But for me to open myself up to that world, as I've said many times, isn't going to help me or the players. It's dealing with my emotions and making sure I look at the game objectively and then work out how we can improve is the best way of me fighting back for the next game.
One of the, quite a large account on Twitter said there was spineless cowards, no heart, no desire, no passion, no energy, from one of fairly influential kind of Twitter account. What do you say to fans who thought that, and what you might get out of them for the next game and for the rest of the season?
Yeah, it's not nice to hear, especially after what we stood for last season. I think it would be the absolute opposite of all of those things that you've quoted. But I understand emotional responses to games. We're all emotional when the game's just finished. But I'm sure the people that have written those words mean them. And now it's up to us to answer that in how we play.
Thanks. Louise, then Oscar. Louise?
Hi, Eddie.
Hi.
Have you considered playing a back three at Manchester City? Or is it not on your horizon at all?
No, everything's on my horizon. There's nothing that's off it. You know, we will analyse and reflect and try and pick a team and a system that gives us the best chance of winning. I've gone to Manchester City and played a back three many times. Not with great success in terms of results, but in terms of performances have always been okay using that system.
Sorry. Have you experimented with different formations in training?
To a degree we do. You know, a training week is always different because you've got two teams playing against each other, so we're always experimenting to a degree, whether that's with one team or another team. So yeah, I mean, systems are just one way of looking at the game, how you put your players together. But I always say the principles of play never change, whether that's you're aggressively pressing or defending the space. Doesn't matter what system you do it in, really.
And as you say, individual errors are key to whatever system you play, and concentration comes into it. Is this somewhere, I mean, has this Dr. Ian Mitchell, your psychologist, been involved? Because obviously when he worked with the Welsh FA and the English FA, that was supposed to be one of his kind of fortes, you know, working on concentration.
Yeah, Mitch has really settled in well here. He's doing some good work behind the scenes. He's not so much involved with the training currently or the in the build up to the game. But I'm sure through time that may well change and he may well come closer to us. At the moment he's doing a lot of work with individuals around the training ground, and he's been very impressive.
Thanks, Louise. Oscar?
Eddie, you've spoken about protecting the players in public, but how angry were you after Chelsea? I mean, have there been harsher words behind the scenes compared to other tricky spells this season when maybe there have been injuries and other extenuating circumstances?
Yeah, I get the fascination with how angry I am, or not. I sort of understand that, because there's sort of there's a need for a reaction, and sometimes you guys will want to hear certain stories or certain things that I've done, but I don't necessarily believe in that style of management. I believe in accountability, and I believe in making your players aware of their roles and responsibilities, and their performances have to be accountable. So I think before you rant and rave and start to say things that you regret, which is very, very easy to do in this job, and I have done it previously, and then you're thinking, I've got to try and unwind what I've said. I don't agree with that style of management, and I've learned from that it's probably not wise to do that. So I'll do it in a more controlled way, but certainly let the players know that I'm not happy. And the biggest tool I've always say that I have is in my team selection. That's the biggest power I have, is if you're not performing well, you're going to come out of the team. Now, that has been challenged this year because I haven't had the array of options that I would have liked. But certainly, I'll be trying to use that as the season unfolds and we get more players back.
So is there a time and a place to read the riot act?
Yeah, no, of course there is. There is, but it can never, in my opinion, it can never be personal. It always has to be about the game, and it has to be about what a player is or isn't doing. But you certainly need that in your armoury as a manager.
Thanks, Oscar. Dominic and then Martin?
You mentioned Anthony Gordon's played virtually non-stop since last June and rarely had a drop-off. He's played through knocks. Do you wish you had more players like him in the squad?
Yeah, I mean, I think we do have reliable players. Some players, like Joelinton last year, was incredible in terms of his availability and what he gave every game, and then this season he's had a very stop-start season. Sometimes that can happen. I experienced that in my own career. Anthony at the moment's in a really good place physically. Of course, he came off the pitch in the last game, but that apart, he's had to manage a few little niggles throughout the season, but he's always put himself on the start line for the team, and he deserves big credit for that, because his game isn't an easy game to play. He is running sometimes box to box to obviously join the attack, then he's having to sprint back. It's a high energy, high physical game, and I think he's handled that side of it really well.
You mentioned Sean Longstaff not training fully, nursing a slight injury, yet he's played every minute since the turn of the year. Why would you say that is the best approach for him and for the team?
Because I've had no other midfielders to play. I would have rested Sean for sure during this period. I've got to also look after Louis. He's 17 years old. So Elliot Anderson hasn't been available. Sandro hasn't been available. I've had no one else to pick.
Do you feel Sean Longstaff needs a rest then in the coming weeks?
But he would probably say no, because every player wants to play. Every player, if you can step onto the pitch and say, right, I'm fit. But me, myself, I would have managed him and looked after him, because as I said, he hasn't been 100% fit. He's played through pain for the team, and that deserves acknowledgement.
Okay, Martin's finish.
You've had cup ties in Milan, Dortmund, Paris, 2 in London, Sunderland, Blackburn, Manchester twice. I think it's getting on to 50,000 fans that followed you. How grateful are you for that support, and how much do you want to give them some special insight?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say the supporters on match days have been truly inspirational for us this year. I think they've never turned on the team through some difficult moments. They've always supported the players, and I've always said that's the thing that I ask of them. Support the team, the players on the pitch, leave any anger or resentment or those type of emotions for me, but support the players. They need it, and they have, and they've after some really difficult away games this year, they've given us some incredible receptions, and that's not us. We don't sit there and take that, or I certainly don't sit there and take that and think that's just expected. It's a unique set of supporters who support their team through thick and thin, and I think that's the hallmark of the Newcastle fans this year.
And that's an awful lot of travel this season.
Yeah, I mean it is. I mean the commitment to travel in Europe is incredible. We found, we found that from us, and we're obviously looked after. But the travel is tiring, and it's expensive. But their loyalty is not, as I say, taken for granted by any of us.